Hello and welcome to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown. Today's show is going to be a very important subject that I think I'm often asked about from constituents, which is an update of State Route 2001 in Pike County. So I'm joined here today with Denise Jaworski. All right, I'm pretty good. We always say Denise's last name is a little bit tough. It's project manager for 01, and also James May, who is the executive press secretary and director for District 4 PennDot.
And you nailed my last name, so congratulations. Perfect.
And it's always hard, you know, when you have a Brown last name. Brown is easy,
true.
right?
Yeah.
May is easy. So,
Yeah.
so Denise, thank you for your patience with that. But you have a very important position as well as James does, in making sure that we fully communicate, and then we're on top of these projects. And the State Route 2001 is a huge project and has been for several years, and it's several phases. So I decided to do the show on it because I think it's important that people stay in tune and get the information right from the source, as compared to hearing some different things on the street. And then also, there are some specific concerns that have come repeatedly into our offices that I think do need to be clarified as well. So thank you again for being here and for being willing to talk about this as well. So let's start with the 01 project in general. Now, it started many years ago, but let's talk about the phases, and I'll let you just talk in general about the project.
Well, 2001 actually started, I'll say the lower part of 2001, below 739. That actually started in design like the year 2000.
Yeah.
And it went out to let that first section, which was like 5.5 miles. It was July, I think, of 2009. And they completed that 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, time goes fast, but I think it was, yeah.
So now they're starting on the next section, and it's going to be a 5-year project. But it's basically the same criteria, updating horizontal, vertical realignments, widen shoulders, widen the lanes. So there's a lot going on there.
That road system in general, and I think even if people really didn't want the road expansion done, I think the consistent message people know is the safety that was definitely needed on that road, the tight parameters and how narrow, and with buses and larger vehicles, windy. So the safety measure, I think everybody can agree on, although sometimes people that are watching may not always want the wide road, and they lose that country feel. But safety is a huge piece of it.
I was asking Denise on the way down, why did they build the road that way originally? Because you look at it and you think, who would ever build the road in this manner? And the conclusion was that it was originally following an old cart path that went through there.
Really?
And a lot of times you'll notice that even the width of the road, he says, what, 35 feet as far as the right-of-way?
Well, the right-of-way is usually 33 feet.
The right-of-way. And it's usually much larger than that, but that's when you're just simply following an old cart path that has been there for years and years. The curvature of the road, and it's taking some hills that it really shouldn't be taking and curving around in ways that it shouldn't be. And it would be interesting to know the logic behind the first farmer that started kind of going that.
Yeah, just following the
and what obstacles was going to be, right?
And why he went that way. But then as the years progressed, this old cart path that probably his horses were pulling, it became a road, and that's what you have there now. And so from a design standpoint, it's certainly not the way that we would design it if we went out now, and that's a lot of the reasons why we're making the changes for safety reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's just the volume of traffic too that is going through there now is so significant too, and so that plays a major role. So the first phase looks great, and I think now we're in the midst of where it looks messy. Let's be honest, as a driver, it's road work. And so, you hate to see it sometimes, but we know the end result is going to be wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think, the trees, the clearing, those type of measures that we do get some calls on that people are concerned with. And then also, too, I guess, where we're at with this second phase right now.
Well, I just talked. I spoke with the project manager right before we came down here, and just kind of asked him for an update. They did just wrap up one of the culverts that they're working on up near a real sharp S-turn, where there's been a lot of washouts up near, I think it's Bear Road up in that area. They just finished that culvert, and so that's part of the work that they're doing there. And that's an area where it's a very sharp S-curve. So again, it goes back to that issue of the safety, but then it's drainage issues as well. And it's an area that have a number of washouts. So they just finished that culvert. Right now, between now and September probably, is they're looking at a lot of utility work. And when you talk about what's taking place out there now, this is one of the people will be driving by and won't see a lot of the real big equipment and a lot of the work that's showing the progress that you like to see on a road like this, because it's a lot of utility work. Now you will see, as you said, it does look sort of messy, but sometimes when you're driving by messy and you see a lot of progress taking place, you kind of understand why the messy is there. With this, right now, between now and September, it's a lot of the utility work. With a project like this, essentially what they're going to do is move all the traffic over onto this temporary road. To do that, they need to move utilities, the poles and different things all have to be relocated, and then they'll realign the road that's there now. And once that's done is when they will move all the traffic back over. But this aspect of it is not quite as exciting, because it's this aspect of moving a lot of the utilities over. He did say the good news right now is that they are still on schedule. It's still a ways out, but there's nothing really. They're able to work. Obviously, we ran into some issues with the acid-bearing rock, but we're still able to continue working while we work through some of those details right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And since you brought it up, the acid-bearing rock, also known as pyrite at times, right?
Yes.
Quick little recap for the person watching on what that is. Because there is also different scopes of that too, on the definition of pyrite and acid-bearing rock, but it's very, very common in Pennsylvania.
Extremely common. And pyrite is essentially fool's gold. That's what it is. And so you can go to a lot of the local parks around here, and you can actually go pan for it. If you ever go to out west especially, your kids will go out and they'll pan for fool's gold, and you can find that. And so it's a very common occurring type of natural occurrence that takes place. It is important, and I know one of the questions we've gotten a lot is there's actually two different issues taking place here in Pike County. One is this ABR I referenced, that's the acid-bearing rock, and that's what's taking place here on 2001. The other is ASR, and one's ABR, one's ASR. Alkaline silica reactivity, that's what's taking place up on Interstate 84.
Okay.
That is essentially in the concrete. When they built that road back in the early 1970s, when they would make concrete, you mix cement with rock and add water. There were certain quarries around the world. One was in Pike County, that a certain type of rock that was found in certain quarries, when you mix it with the cement, it would start to cause this chemical reaction and the road would fall apart. That's why we're replacing 84. A lot of people think that's the same thing because they hear ASR and this is ABR. ABR is basically a natural occurring occurrence, an event that's taking place, and that's this fool's gold. The reason that we're doing the work with it is whenever they did the core borings out there, they took the core borings and they found that there was anywhere between 0.5 to about 0.86 percentage of this pyrite that was in there. Just for reference, a can of soda has about 2.5%. A cup of coffee has about 4.5%. So what we're talking about is very, very small, but if it's above that 0.5, that's when we take precautions, above and beyond what we normally do. And then we treat it, and we have to make sure we store it.
You neutralize it,
yes,
and encapsulate it, right?
Yes.
And that's really over extra precautions, really.
It is,
from what I'm,
yes.
Because
we
just in case.
We over-excavated to make sure we do get it all.
Right.
And then we neutralize it, and then we encapsulate it so no air or water could contact it, which would produce acidic water if that were
and protect
to happen,
it. Yeah. So you're really protecting it very well.
And I think one of the dangers sometimes of taking extra precautions. When people hear that all of the things that we're doing to make sure that we're taking these extra cautions, it almost gives this sense of urgency and this sense of real fear, where we do want to be good stewards of the environment and good stewards of what's out there and the water and things. But many times when people hear about all that we're doing to make sure we're taking those extra steps, it causes some fear. So there was a public meeting and we got a lot of good feedback, and from that now we're going to go back and just we're looking at all options right now to see the best route to go with that.
Very good, and I think that piece of that plays a role into the timing and the scheduling of the road work itself, because it has halted some of some of the process a little bit, right, Denise?
Right,
a
but
little
the
bit.
contractor, like he's still on schedule. I mean, he's still doing other work. He's still able to do other
Right,
work.
so taking care of other stuff while that's being worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and that's good to know. I think at least people know that that's happening parallel to each other. They're
he's
still
gonna do
being
as much
worked,
as he
right,
can.
work being done. So the full O1 project is 4 phases or 5 phases? I always want to get this confused. The all the way out, if we take the O1 long-term plan of O1, is it 4 phases or 5 phases? I've heard both.
5.
Do you know that? Is it 5?
5. Well, the two upper sections above 739,
Right.
403,
Yes.
404, they were
Yes.
done years ago.
Okay.
So then we broke this last section up into 3.
Right, to
Originally
3.
it was 2, but now it's 3.
Right, so if you look at the full scope, it's 5 total.
Right.
And the below 739 is the 3.
Right.
The 3. So the expectation of the second phase is because of the amount of road work and the amount of adjustments that need to be done is a longer time frame for expected completion, correct?
Right now the completion date is like October of 2021.
2021. So that's good. I mean, at least,
5 year, yeah.
right.
5 year.
And again, granted, for the viewers, granted that there's no unexpecteds or anything like that would come into play, but hopefully everything is smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, we learned
Ready.
a lot from the 401 section.
That's right.
So
That's right.
hopefully
So
it'll
that
go a lot
helps.
more smoother.
Right.
And part of, a lot of people many times will say, well, it only took 3 years to build the road. Why does it take twice as many or so much longer? And this comes up with bridges and things like this. A lot of that is because we're trying to maintain the traffic, 2 lanes of traffic for the motorists so that they're not being inconvenienced. And so when people drive by and they see the trees that are missing alongside the road and they see the project taking so long, a lot of that is because we know we need to maintain the traffic for the motorists while we're doing the work. So you think about how do you go about essentially replacing a road, realigning a road, yet at the same time maintaining traffic. That's how you do that, and that's why it takes longer many times to rebuild something than it did to originally build something.
Right.
And it takes a lot of time, too, to accommodate the utilities.
Right. And the modernization and the enhancements and things that have consistently, too, over
Right.
the years changed and adjusted, right, that you have to
Yes.
keep up with. So trees being taken down, and that conversation comes up a lot, being good stewards. And when a project is complete, the second phase is complete, the initiatives or anything with that as far as alongside the roads of where the clearing occurred, anything up and beyond being done that I'm maybe not aware of?
Oh, there'll be more plantings, like new plantings of trees and grasses and.
Good. And I think that's an important piece because as they're getting cleared with the widening, everybody likes to see that. And again, with the country atmosphere up there in Pike County, it's nice to know they might not be there directly or immediately,
Right.
but it will be there eventually.
But it's also important to keep in mind that anytime you have trees where they're coming up over top of the road, you end up running into issues where the sun cannot get down onto the road, then you have the issues of freezing. So at PennDot, we always have to balance out, we love
Distance.
trees as much as anybody does, and we want to keep the trees there. But one, if the trees are too close to the road, especially around bends, you run into
Clearance,
safety issues. With people hitting the trees. But then also one of the other bigger things is that it ends up blocking the sun. And so that's why even as we're doing this, when we're widening the road, we do want to open that up so you don't have that canopy effect down on the road, because it's a real safety hazard when the trees are blocking the sun.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point and something for people to think about, especially as things are completed down the road, even though it's a little bit off. But at least to remember that when they see where the strategy of where things are planted and why they're planted there. Well, listen, it was a very quick update. I very much appreciate both of you being here, and we'll be right back with the legislative report.
Did you know that on October 4th, 1911, the statues that greet visitors in front of the state capitol building in Harrisburg were dedicated to the citizens of the Commonwealth? In 1902, George Gray Bernard was commissioned to design the figures that embellish the front of the Capitol building. During the installation period, Bernard explained to the General Assembly what each sculpture symbolized. The Southern group, titled The Burden of Life, depicts the story of Adam and Eve followed by the fall of man in the forms of despair. The northern group, titled Love and Labor, depicts male and female figures reaping fruits of labor and advances to a new Adam and Eve who gaze westward into the future. Recently, both sculptures underwent restoration to prevent further deterioration from their natural beauty. Now you know. Did you know that the largest mural in the state capitol building in Harrisburg is housed in the chamber of the House of Representatives? In 1908, artist Edwin Austin Abbey painted the mural, which stands over 30 feet high behind the Speaker's rostrum. Titled The Apotheosis of Pennsylvania, the mural depicts the great people who will forever have a place in the history of Pennsylvania. At the top of the mural sits the genius of state, which symbolizes the Commonwealth as a ruler on a throne. At her feet, standing on the first tier, are explorers and pioneers who played a key part in the early days of the Commonwealth. On the second tier stands colonial and revolutionary leaders who helped to form and create a democratic government. On the left of the mural are important military leaders, and on the right are leaders in science and industry. Some of those who grace the mural are William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania, who served as the first governor and Speaker of the House, Benjamin Franklin, who signed the Declaration of Independence and constitutions of both Pennsylvania and the United States. Now you know.
Welcome back to the Legislative Report. I'm State Representative Rosemary Brown, and I'm joined now with Sean Brown from District 5, who's the Executive Press Secretary. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation about roundabouts.
Yeah.
Because we get a lot in the office on roundabouts. And even today I was out in the district and had some people approach me about, you've probably heard this, New Jersey is getting rid of roundabouts and other states are getting rid of roundabouts, and why is Pennsylvania doing more roundabouts, and some of that conversation. So I'll lead with that, and you can go from there from your end.
Well, first off, yeah, that's a big misconception that New Jersey's getting rid of roundabouts in other states. Actually, most places are adding roundabouts. What they are getting rid of are the old-fashioned traffic circles. We've all driven through New Jersey, those big traffic circles where when you're in the circle, you have to yield to the oncoming traffic that's merging into the circle. Those are the old school ones. What we're looking at now are roundabouts. The only thing that's really similar and the same about that is the fact that they're circular in shape. They're really, and that's really the only similarity. What we have with these are roundabouts where the traffic that's coming into the circle has to yield to the traffic in the circle. And what that does is really produce slower speeds, easier merges, and safer intersections. And really getting rid of the traditional intersections and replacing some of those old traffic circles that most people are used to and what they think of.
Well, and I think that's probably part of it, that they would assume that that's a real roundabout, and so they're getting rid of that, and we're adding them doesn't make quite sense. So it's nice to get the clarification from you on the different states and what that really means as far as a definition of a roundabout.
Those older ones are very inefficient. There wasn't, back then engineering standards were different and traffic worked a lot differently, and people thought that that's the way they should work. Well, the new roundabouts, there's a lot of thought and process put into it. They're very tight, they're smaller circles, not those big wide circles. Traffic really helps it flowing actually safer and helps with congestion mitigation, where those old ones really slow up traffic a lot. So they're very different. The only thing that's the same is the fact that they're circular, but I think traffic, once you see the new ones, you'll realize they're nothing like the traffic circles.
Well, and it's interesting because I do get a lot of questions, and because whenever there's something new that pops up on the road systems, and we've adjusted some signage, we've done some things, and we're still looking at signage. You know, just in case anybody's watching, we were talking even before the show that we are still always looking at signage and the best ways to make people understand how to drive a roundabout and make sure they do it safely. So we are always looking at that. But I have even in my office these pamphlets on roundabouts, because there's multi-lane roundabouts or single lane. Obviously, we have a multi-lane. Really, right? What we consider multi-lane, because we've got two lanes going around.
It's kind of like a hybrid.
Of a single.
It does have two, but they dump off right away. So.
Right. So it's not as much. But it's interesting because it does bring up the fact of the hard, old-fashioned intersection. And that safety, I think one of the stats is like a 90% reduction a 32% reduction in all crashes, and a 68% fewer injury-causing crashes as compared to a hard intersection.
Well, when we look at crashes, we of course look at all crashes, but we especially look at your fatal crashes and your major injury crashes. Obviously, those are the most devastating to the people involved, the families, the communities, and those are the ones we really want to prevent. And roundabouts have a significant drop in fatal crashes, actually 90% drop in fatal crashes to traditional intersections. And it's about a 75% drop in major injury crashes. So those are really the ones we really get to change, and we can really see results by changing these traditional intersections to roundabouts.
And that comes from the fact, as you mentioned before, that you're in these roundabouts, you should most likely be going much slower than you would be as if you were approaching an intersection of a hard line intersection. You're taking this hopefully a little slower. Although I'd like to see some of our drivers locally take it a little slower.
Oh, absolutely.
Slower than what I've seen. So I'm asking all drivers to take it slow through the roundabout.
Yeah.
But on average, most are taking it slow through there.
Yeah, you're looking at the average about, depending on the radius of the roundabout, 15 to 25 miles an hour to navigate that. And that's just due to how tight it is in there and the engineering that goes into that. Now, cars are always moving, so it's very easy to merge in traffic and you're constantly moving, but you're moving at slower speeds. So you don't have some of those high impact crashes you'll have when you have a traditional intersection where cars maybe miss a light and they're going who knows how fast, 45, 50 miles an hour.
Right.
And those are some of the most devastating crashes.
Right. And so those are the real key pieces for the roundabout and why it was installed in this bypass down here in Marshall's Creek was an enhanced safety measure. And also, one of the reasons I think the bypass was done back in the day was because of traffic backup.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So talk a little more of those stats, because I think there was some information on here too about how much that reduces the backlog that you would normally have at a normal intersection.
Also with safety, you do have the congestion issues. What the roundabout can do is it can move traffic now during peak times 30% more efficiently through that intersection than you would a traditional intersection. Now that's during peak.
Not dealing with lights, you're not dealing with any of that timing of lights, which we see.
You might sit there a little bit, but you're constantly moving. And with the slower speeds of the cars through there, you always have space. Space is created between the cars, so there's always room to merge, so traffic is moving through efficiently. Now that's during peak times. During off-peak times, there's virtually no waiting. When you're in a side street, you pull up traditional intersection, you could be waiting there for a minute, sitting there at the light when no traffic's coming. Not with a roundabout. You're always going to be able to merge in traffic safely, get through there, and get on with your day.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because I'm sure even again, people watching that, I get a lot of calls on the timing of lights and working with the townships and trying to figure out, when the traffic volumes change and if there is other road work getting done in the area, adjusting those timings.
Yeah.
And you've gotten calls and
all
from all the time. So you get calls from us all the time. So I think we're always adjusting and making sure we're doing our best during different situations that happen, and even the volume with the summer, the traffic or the tourism industry that changes too. So and the other piece that I always have a concern with and what I get calls on is the driver approaching the roundabout, driving the roundabout. Now you're talking about taking it slow, that most cars would automatically reduce to a slower level. And I think no matter what, they do have to reduce to some level. But the responsibility of, which I think is very important today, of the yield factor, to me is one of my top priorities and concerns with the roundabouts, is knowing, do you have to yield or does the other person have to yield?
Absolutely.
And watching that yield sign, and that's always a concern for me. So this roundabout here at Marshall's Creek, coming down 209 South. Now I'm talking to my drivers that are watching, coming down 209 South. That traffic is supposed to stop and yield to the circle. Very oftentimes I don't see that. And I see people just going and then the circle traffic stopping. The wrong lane stopping, or the one assuming one's going to stop and the other one doesn't. So if you can, talk a little bit about that and anything you could clarify.
Well, I think that for the motorists, the local motorists who are watching this and drive through that, you know, they have to be paying attention to the roadway. But even if you're not local and maybe you're new to it, if you're just paying attention to the signs, if you're looking, you see it says yield, merge the traffic. I mean, we have a lot of signage out at these roundabouts trying to let people know. Unfortunately, I think people become very inattentive to the roadway, whether they're distracted driving or just not paying attention. You're driving down the roadway, you're just, your mind's somewhere else. They're not paying attention to the signs. So if motorists actually pay attention to what they're doing, how to use these things, they'll get through this, you know, quickly and safely. So we really want motorists to realize that when you're coming up to the traffic circle, the roundabouts are, that you need to yield to the traffic in the roundabout. This is how the roundabouts really move traffic efficiently and
You're
safely.
responsible as you're approaching.
Absolutely.
You're the one. If you're
Yeah.
not in the circle yet,
Yeah.
you're responsible.
Yeah, and also pay attention to which lane you're in.
Right.
There's 2 lanes coming, say, northbound. If you were going through, you wanted to make sure you're in the, if you're going to the 7 Bridges Road, you want to make sure you're in the left lane. If you're going to 209 North, you're in the right lane. Pay attention to things like that. We have signage, we have markings on the roadway to really clarify this to motorists, to really make it so there's not a hard decision out there. You can easily figure out where you're going.
Right. Now, thank you. Thank you for that. And any more roundabouts that you know of in Monroe County that are scheduled to get implemented, just as a side note?
Nothing right now. We always, we have a mandate to really look at roundabouts when we're looking at some of these projects, intersection projects there. They want to see whether or not that is going to be a solution. Now, it's not always a solution to an intersection issue and moving there, but it can be. So we're always looking at that throughout the county and throughout really the state. We have several in our area. The area that I cover includes Berks County, Lehigh County, and that we're looking at several down there, the 222 corridor, so we're really excited about that.
So you may know this and you may not know this. Cost measures on a roundabout versus a normal traffic light installation. And do you have about a number
Well,
on, does one cost more than the other?
Well, not a number per se. It really depends on the situation. Roundabouts can require a little more land area, maybe some right-of-way that needs to, but then once it's in, for municipality, the maintenance costs, a traffic signal, a lot of people don't realize, municipalities own and maintain traffic signals. PennDot can put them in, but we don't own them, so it costs local taxpayer dollars to electrify them, to change light bulbs, to maintain that, and it can be very expensive. You don't have those at roundabouts. So the maintenance cost for a municipality is much lower here, and that's something that should be a benefit to local taxpayers.
Right. So they should say thank you, the municipalities, for that. And then again,
think so.
increasing the safety
Absolutely.
for the driver, which is really the utmost concern when PennDOT does the projects as well. Well, Sean, thank you very much. I hope it
Welcome.
gave a little bit clarification
Absolutely. Thank you
for
for
the
having me.
people. Thank you. Again, this is State Representative Rosemary Brown. Thank you for watching the Legislative Report. If you have any questions about this show or any other state-related matters, please feel free to contact my office.